So a few days ago, we were thinking how to start this presentation, speaking about migration and how it's affecting our cities and everyday life in general. After discussing several concepts about migration, we realized that the best way is to start from within, to describe this group of people that you see in the picture. This is Catalytic Action. It was initiated by a group of young people who are trying to seek a better future through higher education in London. It was founded by 3 people, me from Lebanon, Riccardo from Italy, and Laura from the UK, and then extended to include more people coming from Ireland, Greece, Syria, and others. This made us realize that catalytic action wouldn't have existed if migration wasn't part of this moving world that we live in. The reason we got together is that we wanted to try to address global crisis through the use of inclusive and empowering design approaches. In 2014, one of the major crises was, and still is, unfortunately, the Syrian conflict and the global migration phenomenon linked and enhanced by it. We wanted to intervene in such context and looked for opportunities in Lebanon, the small country that is hosting 1.6 million refugees, where 1 out of 4 people is a refugee, and over 50% of them are children. The influx of population obviously had a huge impact on the built environment and in general on the everyday life dynamics of the country.
One of the guiding principles of our work is participation. Participation that involves not just the partners, local community, but also teachers, and in our case, specifically children. For us, participation does not simply mean giving the people the opportunity to choose what they want among some options that are given, because otherwise that would be like building consensus rather than actually having a participatory approach. So for us, participation means empowering people through design processes that allow them to be active agents of their own development. In this picture, we were running a participatory exercise with the children to design their own playground in Lebanon. This was like a very fundamental step, not just to get ideas from the kids about the kind of space that they wanted to have, but to start the process of building ownership towards the project, which then was very important during the implementation phase and future maintenance. Another aspect that is very important in our work is to improve existing practices in the place where we work. We believe that there is a lot of creativity out there that could be enhanced through processes of empowerment, or more simply through processes of knowledge sharing. In this picture, we see a project that we actually completed a few weeks ago before coming here, which is also a play space for refugee children in Lebanon. And the story behind the fact that this is linked to empowering existing practices is because the detail of these wings was developed together with a local welder from the town. And this detail that we developed together, was very happy about it, because actually now made this work better, because this single piece of these wings actually turned out to be cheaper and stronger. So it's a small example of how empowering, which is a big word, can actually work in the details of our work.
Lastly, sustainability cannot be achieved, at least in our case, without creating strategic partnerships. It is important for experts in this field to come together to achieve a common goal by complementing each other's work rather than overstepping each other. It is essential to break the conventional authorship of projects, as this model does not work successfully in such contexts where the center of the process is the people, is not just the designer and the architect. Adding to this, strategic partnership does not simply mean signing contracts with other institutions and organizations, but it also means creating these partnerships with the local community member that we work with every day, For example, in this picture, we are having dinner at Khalid's house, who's the local carpenter. And we can easily say that him and his family played a major role in the success of our pilot project. Therefore, a project is sustainable when it is able to empower all of the actors involved. Empowerment begins with building a sense of trust and friendships. More technically, a sense of ownership, as we said before. Sustainability means that the project is able to sustain itself by the people without being dependent on the people or the designers who actually might have initiated it or implemented it. Trust and friendship is something that sometimes we forget to include in our projects. But as we keep on dealing with people and working with people, we cannot exclude it from our design process, as it is at the core of having successful and sustainable relationships. This is an example of a project that we are going to implement in a few weeks in Lebanon. It speaks about a pavilion that was set up in Milan for the Expo 2015. The idea is to reuse this pavilion to become a school for Syrian refugee children in Lebanon. This project speaks a lot about the aspects of sustainability, and the story behind it is way longer that we cannot just put in 1 minute in this slide. Throughout this project, several actors are involved to try to give a positive example about how temporary exhibition structure can be reused to tackle humanitarian crisis, and instead of being wasted as other cases that we have seen in the past.
Now let's go back to the beginning of the presentation. So, three young graduates looking for opportunities to actually put in practice concepts like participation, inclusive design in the architecture sector. The truth is that the current architecture sector does not really offer opportunities to begin this path. A few months ago, we were at a conference in Riba in London, and we were actually discussing how the old business model of architect, client, and contractor has now failed, and definitely cannot be the leading model of architecture and urban design in the following years and in the world that we live in at the moment. Our role as architects should probably now move more towards asking the right questions rather than giving the right answers. As architects, as it has been mentioned today several times, we should look at the current global crisis and conditions, and then ask how our practice can work in helping to solve some issues. We also believe that socially responsible architecture cannot be left just to those who can afford it. As I said, the market does not yet offer opportunities. But there needs to be a shift in the market where we all recognize the importance of inclusive design and we are all willing to invest in it. Only in this way then also local architects from the same developing countries will be able to play an active role in designing and shaping their own environment. Finally, there is a very important scenario in front of us, which is how Syria will be rebuilt after the war will end, which we all hope is going to happen very soon. Is it going to be an inclusive design, an inclusive approach where the local people will be able to have an active role in the reshaping of their nation? Or is rather going to be a top-down approach like we have seen many times in the past that we believe is going to just fuel further segregations and conflicts to come? I would like to conclude by reading this quote. It's actually one of the kids we worked with in Lebanon on a playground project, and she said, "I'm here to build a playground with you, so when I go back to Syria, I can build one myself." We think like this is a very peculiar sentence because it shows how even a kid that is being engaged in an inclusive way with an inclusive and participatory approaches can grasp the importance that every single citizen has in the shaping of our future cities. Thank you.